state, under God. Moving on to item 4, roll call. Everyone is present except Mrs. Kathy Garcia. She is running a little late. She will join us shortly. Moving on to item 5, recommend approving the agenda of the regular school board meeting of October 4th, 2011 with any corrections or deletions. Dr. Montoya.
Dr. Escobedo, we have some areas that we need deleted. On number 11A, item 9, pages 241 to 244 will be deleted from the agenda and backup. And item D, contracts and agreements, item 26, pages 372 to 375 will be deleted from agenda and backup, and that's it, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Montoya. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve.
I have a motion by Mrs. Peña, seconded by Dr. Saavedra. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. If there are no objections from the board, I would like to combine items 6 and 7. Recommend approving the minutes of the special called board meeting of June 23rd, 2011, and the minutes of the regular board meeting of July 19th, 2011, with any corrections. Are there any corrections from the board, Dr. Saavedra?
No, sir. I make a motion to approve.
I have a motion by Dr. Saavedra,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Peña. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item 8, recommend approving the consent agenda. The board has agreed to discuss the following items. All the items below are not, all items called out will be discussed and or deliberated. The board has agreed to discuss item 6, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 24, 33, 34, and of course consultation with attorney and real property. So I'll go over them one more time just for clarity. We will discuss and or deliberate 6, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 24, 33, 34, and consultation with attorney and real property. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
I have a motion by Mrs. Peña, seconded by Dr. Saavedra. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Superintendent's report, conference presentation 1. Presentation of 40-hour tactical casualty rescue team, Dr. Montoya.
Dr. Escobedo, members of the board and audience, one of the things that we always worry about is some kind of a disaster or a violent act at one of our campuses. We live in a time when those things are happening in school districts and campuses, and one of the things that we have learned as we work with law enforcement in the community, and we have learned from events at other school districts, is that a lot of times when something happens on a campus, the emergency medical side is not able to enter a building until it's completely secure, and in the meantime people inside the building may be injured or hurt, and it takes a while. What we did with our police department is that we had a program that we located that trains law enforcement and military, in essence, as combat medics. So if anything happens as an event occurs in one of our campuses and they enter a building, they're going to be able to assist medically anybody that's hurt or injured in that building prior to any EMS medical services from the community enter the building. So it is an asset for safety for our students and our staff. And Chief Garcia, if you'd like to step forward and kind of explain that a little further.
And right behind me is a band of brothers and sisters that will be here to talk a little bit about our program here. And this program, as Dr. Montoya alluded to, before I forget, Mr. Superintendent, members of the board, Dr. Escobedo, and audience, I thank you for this opportunity. This is a very important time for us. And we've been doing this training for the last several months. This is a really exciting program because it's supporting this district to expand that security net that we always talk about. It's just another layer of security. It's affording our personnel that edge, that edge when seconds count. And so I'm going to have one of my officers that actually participated in one of our officers that participated in this program come up to the podium and pretty much talk about this. Officer Rivera, who is currently assigned to our K-9 division.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Officer Rivera. I'm a police officer here with the school district. I'm currently assigned to the K-9 division in our department. Very happy to be here. I want to talk to you a little bit, enlighten you on a training that we were sent. And it was titled the Tactical Casualty Rescue Training. It was located in Bayview, Texas, at the Bayview Detention Center. And it was from July the 25th to the 29th. It was a whole week training. As you can see some of the slides that we have here, it was a very hands-on training. Our sergeant went with us with 4 other officers. There were 5 in total that went. We were trained by 2 military personnel that have over 40 years of military experience, also in the medical field. They are Mr. Aaron R. and Mr. Victor Briceño. The different methods that we were taught are care under fire, tactical field care, and tactical evacuation care. What that is just us as law enforcement. We do have a type of training to be first responders, to be there in case, God forbids, the unimaginable happens in our district. Well, with this training, what helped us is for us to be able to assess anybody who's injured. To be there, we need to be able to secure the area, be able to keep it as a safe zone, and if we can't, for whatever reason or another, we have to transfer those injured parties out to a safety zone where they will get more medical care from EMS or anything that needs to be transported out. I felt very fortunate to be to this training, thanks to you and to Chief Garcia, because we were with all levels of law enforcement. There were several of the DPS troopers, there were Border Patrol agents, ICE agents. There were also several other police departments from different parts of the valley. So we all participated in this. So thanks to you and to our, Chief Garcia, this training, it gives us another tool in our belt for us to be able to protect our children, our staff, and everybody here in this district. So thank you very much for allowing us to attend this training. Thank you.
Again, I'd like to emphasize the training. That's actually, we have 5 more officers already lined up to attend the next class, which is coming around really I believe it's October. So we're going to build this as we go along. And one of the things that we're excited about is to promote our new school involving medical students. Have a really big heart and a very special place in my heart for paramedics and medical personnel. Once upon a time, I used to do that in the city of Brownsville as the first paramedic in 1977. So I like to really share that story because it's very important. And nowadays you see that more and more public safety, first responders that are really connected to a very, very good, it's a community effort. And I think we need to really support this initiative. It's a very important initiative, and we support it. And is there anything that this department can provide to that development? We're here to assist. Thank you again.
Thank you, Chief. This certainly seems like very beneficial training. In times of need, we certainly depend on our first responders, so I'm so glad that you and the officers were able to participate and continue to participate in the future. Comments or questions from the board? If not, we move on to item 2, notification of allowance contingency fund change orders. Dr. Montoya.
Dr. Escobedo, members of the board, these are change orders for 2 of our facilities, Brownsville Academic Center and Brownsville Early College High School. Mr. Haynes, if you'd like to share any points from there.
Well, I guess we can start off with any questions from the board. Mr. Longoria, do you have a specific question, or do you want him to just go through the whole book?
Yes, Dr. Montoya and Mr. Haynes. I noticed that these are for modifications of existing sewer lines, changing them like from 8-inch to 10-inch. Do you know why, or why weren't the proper size sewer lines implemented in the first place? I mean, why are they coming back to change it?
Mr. Haynes, go ahead, sir.
Dr. Escobedo, Dr. Montoya, members of the board. This time, basically what was the sewer lines were existing. Basically, you have 36 for the Brownsville Academic Center. You had a 36 line that runs between the street of Robindale and the new back construction site sewer line on the opposite side of the street, and they had to modify the irrigations lines. Those lines were already existing, and so they needed to modify to be able to connect to those lines.
And this is for both for the early college, high school, and
No, this is basically only for the Brownsville Academic Center. For the early college, you also had a 8-inch steel pipe that was, modifications was done to increase sewer line from an 8-inch to a 10-inch line and add also a manhole, but that was already existing, the 8-inch line. So they did have to change that.
it was existing prior to the construction?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. That was all. Thank you.
Any other question or comments from the board? If not, we move on to item 3, presentation of career technical education status report. Dr. Montoya.
Dr. Escobedo, members of the board, we have Miss Mary Jo Monfiles will share some information on our career technology education program in several areas. Ms. Monfiles.
Dr. Escobedo, Dr. Montoya, members of the board. Mr. Maury Werner is our program administrator, and he has the status report. Mr. Werner.
Thank you. Dr. Montoya, board members, I'm pleased to be here today to present the status report on the Career and Technical Education Department. I believe all of you have received a summary, so I'm not going to spend countless times reading all the detail. I'm just going to summarize material as we go through here. The first section is career and pathway enrollment and pupil-teacher ratios. We've listed those by career pathway for HANA, Rivetta, and veterans, and you'll notice we've highlighted in red those areas that show a significant enrollment, namely business management and administration and health science. Also, law, public safety, corrections, and security also has a high enrollment. It's very popular. In addition, we look at Lopez, Pace, and Porter. We also have a high enrollment in business management, administration, and health science. You'll notice that health science across the board has quite a few students participating in the program. And in addition, for Lopez, Pace, and Porter, law, public safety, corrections, and security services also are very popular programs within the district. Now we have magnet programs enrollment and pupil-teacher ratios. You'll notice the health science professional at HANA, there are 466 students with 6 teachers with an approximate 58 pupil-to-teacher ratio. In the law program at PACE indicates 394 students with 4 teachers with a 98.5 ratio of pupils to teacher. The next section is the magnet program's out-of-zone enrollment numbers. We have those listed by campus. The HANA Medical Health Magnet Zone campus, you'll notice that there are students from throughout the district that have an interest in that who have apparently uniformly decided to attend that program. To the right is the Porter Engineering Professions Magnet Zone campus. The next slide is the Lopez Agriculture, the Lopez Audio Video Technical Technology Magnet Zone campus. PACE, Education and Training Magnet, and the PACE Law Magnet. You'll notice that there are 394 students at the PACE Law Magnet campus. Veterans, Government and Administration Magnet Zone campus, and the Veterans Architecture and Construction Magnet Zone campus. And finally, the Rivetta International Business Magnet Zone campus. Next section is the 2011-2012 Career and Technical Education budget. We have it broken down by location, with the Hanna and Porter High Schools listed first, Pace and Rivera, Lopez and Veterans. Then there's the BISD Earlidge College High School, Brownsville Learning Academy, Brownsville Academic Center, and Adult Education. Cummings, Falk, Still, and Oliveda. Perkins, Vela, Bestedo, and Lucio. Garcia, Stillman, Manzano, Lincoln Park. And finally, the administration and system-wide budget. And we made a note there that the fringe benefits were computed to include fringe benefits for the entire career and technology program, funded under one account and under administration. The summary shows a current budget of $1,200,000 for Fund 164, total allocation or revenue from the state of $10 million approximately, for a difference, a shortfall of $1,158,000. The target we've been given by the Finance Department is $9,600,000 rather than $10,064,000. Fund 244 is listed to the right. Current budget is $1,039,000. Our approved fund has been $899,000. What we have to do this fall is to adjust our budget down by $140,000 so that we meet the $899,000 balance. The reconciliation steps are listed at the bottom of this slide. Step 1 is to remove vacant FTEs from the budget and significantly reduce central administration and system-wide budgets without impacting student services. The last section is historical insights, and future plans. At the end of the school year 2010-2011, approximately 28 CT teachers had a 3-year history of very low enrollments. Principals and central administration worked together to place students in CT classes with a goal of 75-to-1 teacher-to-pupil ratio for all CT classes. And this was something that was worked on very diligently by administration during the months of August and September. Exploring Careers is a BISD required 7th grade course. As part of the coursework, students take Cooter Software Program Skills Assessment. This helps them determine career aptitudes and interests. Under future plans, we want to conduct a Career Pathways Banking Program survey with all 8th graders in early October of 2011. That survey is in process and should be conducted sometime this week. We also want to implement a full no-cost to the district CT evaluation by assessment or an outside source. And highlighted in red is something that was not included in the materials that were sent to you, but we want to establish a continuous improvement plan for each career cluster and develop plans to thoroughly promote each program with the intention of increasing enrollments. If we have a number of CT teachers with a consistently low enrollment over the past 3 to 4 years, it only makes sense to examine the methods that we use to recruit students for those programs and encourage more and more students to participate. The last section I don't have on the slides, but it's a sample of an evaluation that was done for PSJA that was delivered April 1st of this year. It's entitled The College Ready, College Connected CT Reform. And basically, what they want to do was to determine the alignment toward high-paying entry-level jobs in the Rio Grande Valley, opportunities for post-secondary education, opportunities to acquire college credit in high school. The process is designed to engage key district staff in answering the following questions. What is the state of the career academics of academies? How well do they align to the mission of the district? High potential career opportunities and higher education. In our region of the state, what are the employment opportunities now and over the next 10 years? What does the present research say about career development? Which pathways demonstrate potential for success in college that lead to certification? In which pathways and courses of study does the district have the capacity to develop and implement in curriculum, facilities, and faculty? That concludes our presentation. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to entertain those.
Dr. Saavedra?
Yes, I have a question. On the historical insights, if we go back, I guess if y'all can go back to your pages, only until now have we seen that 3 years ago we were going and we were struggling through these enrollments, and we let it kind of slip by. Again, this is why, and I guess I can address it to the curriculum and the career and technology. This is why here as a board, we've mentioned time and time again the importance of evaluating these programs. And we're going to, I guess, we've asked for a calendar of, which programs are going to be evaluated, because $1 million, that's right now. And if we don't take corrective measures, I commend you all because you all at least are looking at the data now. That's why we keep saying how data is so important, because we need to look at numbers. We need to find out what it is. Where is it that we are faltering? Because the 8th graders coming in should already have their career pathway done and completed by the time they start freshman year. Because this is something that's going to then channel them. It doesn't mean they can't change it. They're not locked in, but at least there's a guide to help them succeed. One of the things I didn't see here in the report, and I would like that, Mr. Werner,
Yes.
is these students, career and technology, should be receiving dual enrollment credits. They should have anywhere college hours up to 12, 15 hours at least. Could we see a compilation of the number of students in each area and what kind of courses and credits they're receiving, if it's college credit or AP credits that they're receiving, because that's important. These students are starting these magnet schools so they can continue that career. And the sooner we get them to qualify into early colleges and to make sure that they take dual enrollment, it's going to benefit our
Absolutely.
students. And I don't see that in this report. So if we could get those numbers, I would really like to see that, because that also helps us evaluate the program, which of the career and technology programs we need to continue. And as we saw the report for PSJA, they really took seriously what they're doing as far as where's the market going in the next, 5-10 years, where are we headed, what kinds of avenues we need to take. You alluded to the career process, the recruiting process.
Absolutely.
So all of those are factors that, I know it's a lot, because I speak in, this is my passion. I want to get kids to get college credit as soon as they can in high school, because this way we've already dangled the bait for them. They've taken the bite, and they're going to continue their careers.
Absolutely. We'll work on that. We'll get something started tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Any other questions comes from the board? Thank you, Mr. Werner, Dr. Montoya. Moving right along, item 4, board calendars. Dr. Montoya.
Dr. Escobedo, members of the board, as we speak this evening, elementary schools are having their open house from 5:30 to 7:30. This Thursday, the middle schools will have their open house from 5:30 to 7:30. And Friday, we'll have the Buddy Fun Meet for Porter, Rivera, and Lopez clusters during the day at Sam Stadium. And that's all.
Thank you, Dr. Montoya. Moving on to public audience. The next item on our agenda is a public comment period. This is time for citizens, staff, or students to provide their comments to the board. Statements and questions from the audience will not be permitted during another portion of this meeting, so please let us hear from you now if you have comments to present. To hear your comments heard tonight, your name and the subject matter of your comments must appear in the sign-in sheet, which is located in the rear of the meeting room. Each speaker will be limited to 5 minutes to complete his or her comments. With all due courtesy, we will strictly enforce the time limit. If a group of people want to be heard on the same topic, the board asks that they designate a spokesperson to avoid needless repetition. The board has adopted rules to preclude the abuse of open forum by, for example, anyone uselessly repeating the same comment or complaint meeting after meeting. All participants must understand that if your comment in the judgment of the presiding officer constitutes a complaint against an employee or an officer, the presiding officer will interrupt and ask you to stop and direct you to proceed to the local BISD's formal grievance procedure, be that DGBA, FNG, and GF local. With those cautions in mind, we will now be glad to hear your general comments. The first speaker, and I apologize if I mispronounce the name, is Dr. I'm just going to say Y. Trakru. And there is no subject.
Thank you very much for allowing me to speak here. I had come here a few days ago when there was a meeting similar to this, and we had gotten the opportunity to talk about the magnet schools for middle school and high school. I just wanted to follow up on that. And just like the earlier time I had said, I'm a pediatrician. I see kids, and I've been seeing kids in Brownsville for 17 years. Both me and my wife are pediatricians. All our kids go to public schools, so they are there. And in our professional life, we want all the kids to do well. And as pediatricians, we are obligated to see all kids, regardless of their caste, creed, color, whatever, gender. One of the things that we have noticed in Brownsville is the kids seem to do well till in their elementary school, and once they seem to go to middle school and high school, they don't do too well. There seems to be a huge lag in their performance from their elementary school over to their middle school and often onto their high school. My oldest is now going to a magnet school in Edinburgh because that was the best that we could see. What we would like to do is to see and help, if we can in any way, the creation of a magnet school for middle school and high school, so that these children get an opportunity to get a higher degree of education. There's so many smart kids in Brownsville, and oftentimes a lot of children are told that they are ADHD, and I get to see tons of them. You should come to my clinic and see how busy our clinic is. And there's so many children who are told that they are ADHD because they're so smart that they go over and beyond what is being taught. And once they go over and beyond what they're being taught, they just look around, they try to create work for themselves. And if they had an opportunity to be given a higher degree of work, I think they would excel. So many of our children would excel. Just like we have programs for children who don't do well and they're put into special classes so they can be pulled up into a regular class and they can be pushed beyond their zone of comfort too so that they can learn more. Similarly, we should have a magnet school where children are given a little bit more stress, if you will, or a little higher degree of education so that they can pull up everybody along with them. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Dr. S. Trakru, and there is no subject. Dr. S. Trakru? That was okay. For both. Okay, thank you. The next speaker is Patrick Hammis. Thanks. And less money?
No, money.
Want less money?
Money. Money. Dr. Montoya, members of the board, my name is Patrick Hammis. I'm speaking on behalf of the Association of Brownsville Educators. I want to apologize right off the bat. I was a little presumptuous in the thank you part. I was hoping on the consent agenda that number 10 would be a consent item. We have come to you many times through the boards and through other forums and hoping that this board can find in their heart and in their pocketbooks along with administration the chance to restore the 10 paid vacation days and holidays to our classified employees. We're hoping tonight that you will take the next action and approve in restoring this to them. And as you can see, we have a lot of people who are immediately affected who are present tonight because they are also hoping that you will find in their favor. On the money, not less money, although it could be. And I talked to Mr. Garcia right before this. There was an article in the San Antonio paper last week, front page, Valero, is going to be going to the state and requesting millions of dollars to update their equipment to meet environment EPA requirements. To do that, they're going to get funded from, they want to be funded from the oil and gas fund, which is what education is funded from. The precept on this, or or initial thoughts, is that this is going to pass. And it's going to take millions of dollars away from public education. And in the article it quoted, or it gave the example of the Corpus Christi School District would lose an additional $6.2 million. So I'm hoping that administration will check into this to see how this could possibly impact us as we get ready for the next year's budget. The last thing we can do afford in public education is another large increase in cuts like we had last year. We know that there's a small cut coming this year, not as great. But if Valero, a multi-million-dollar profit-making company, can go and get money from the public to update the equipment that they should be able to afford to update, we are all going to lose on this. So we are hoping that we can all come together and support the fact that the state would say no to Valero and yes to kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hammes. The next speaker, George E. Borrego, and there's no subject to be discussed.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Escobedo, administration, and parents and other people that are here. I wonder how that shirt that Patrick is wearing is coming off on TV around the city. It's a little bright, but it's nice.
Just like
Item number 10, I'm sure, is going to be approved. Smiley said so.
what else
We
do you
got
say?
the money.
Rest assured.
You're just going to discuss it so that you can make sure that everybody understands. So I'm sure it will be approved. On the magnet program, while we have not met as an executive board to discuss this, I have had a lot of input from a lot of business people and common people, working people, and they like the idea, as do I. I think it's a little late in coming. Perhaps we should have done it a long time ago. I fault myself because I didn't think about it. We just kept letting our kids go. But I think maybe the time has come. But we need a methodical, studied approach to the transition. Let us not just do it. We got to do it right. We are one of the largest districts in this state, certainly the largest in the valley, and we have to set the example for the rest of the districts. So we must do it right. It is incumbent on this board and this administration that we have the proper participation of all the parties involved, and the doctors are here, as you can tell. The association will probably go on board. Why wouldn't we? Business community will also be on board. And let's just do it the right way. Let's do it right. And let us make BISD proud, and let us serve our students as they deserve to be served. Thank you for getting the days back for our classified personnel. I hope I'm not saying that ahead of time. And then in reference to the insurance, we're having a few glitches on the change, but Judy Coyle has assured me that she's going to pick up the copay of all the people that are not getting paid right now. Just kidding, Judy. Did she run out? Everybody wants Blue Cross, by the way. I've talked to some doctors. They're happy with Blue Cross. I've talked to some other business people. They're happy with Blue Cross. So I think the change is good. And I'm out of things to say.
Thank you, Mr. Borrego.
Thank you.
Our next speaker, Fernando Galvan, consent agenda item number 10.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Fernando Galvan. I'm here for the certain number of bus drivers who have organized for a number of years now into an association called Choferes Unidos. I'm here to address respectfully item 10. And I would like to give thanks to Mr. Borrego, first of all, although I do feel that he has stolen my thunder on this issue. He's done a lot more articulately and persuasively than I probably could ever. On item 10, ladies and gentlemen, the bus drivers who have asked me to stand here before you today would like you to take into account that historically the number of work days that they have had to work or been able to work for the school district has been reduced over time. In fact, about 10 years ago, they were getting paid for a total of 214 days. And now it has gone down to anywhere between 185 and 187 days, which is about 30 days that they've lost over the past 10 years. 30 days of wages, of work, of money that they need to put on the table for their families. So we would like to respectfully ask that you take that into account. There's a number of bus drivers here tonight. Pretty much all of the ladies and gentlemen over here sitting in blue are all here for as your employees with the transportation department. There would be a lot more. There would be a lot more, but they are working. They work very early in the morning, starting about 5, 6 in the morning, and they work late into the evening. I'd respectfully, again, ask that you take into account. These are very hard-working people who carry a responsibility, probably a heavy load of responsibility that nobody else in the department does, that nobody else in the school district does, which is to drive our children, your children, to and from school and to home safely every day. This is what they do. In exchange, they don't get paid very well. They don't get compensated fairly. They get paid what the school district can pay them and what they are willing to accept. But that does not necessarily mean that it is fair. I ask that you take that into account also. And that you restore their paid holidays and their paid vacation days to the way that it is expressed in item 10. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you to Mr. Galvan. Moving on to item 11, consent agenda, item number 6. Recommend approval to submit the class size waiver petition to the Texas Education Agency for grades K through 4th for the fall semester of 2011-2012 school year. I'll open the floor for discussion. Mrs. Longoria.
Yes, Dr. Montoya, I just want to know, what is the class size ratio right now at these grade levels?
Again, this addresses the issue of grades K through 4 that have to be at the 22-to-1. Anything above that, we have to ask the Commissioner of Education for a waiver. But Mr. Vasquez, I believe you're here. If you'd step up for an update on that whole issue. We have been reducing the number of waiver requests literally in the last few weeks. But Mr. Vasquez, go ahead.
Mrs. Longoria had a very specific question. What was your specific question, ma'am?
Yeah, what is
Before you go throughout the whole
the
program.
class size ratio right now at the elementary campuses?
The elementary ratio right now, Dr. Escobedo, Dr. Montoya, rest of the board members, is 22-to-1. That's K through 4th. That is state mandated. So in that particular case, I know that we've reduced the number. Even a week ago, Ms. Longoria, we had 6 campuses. We're down to 2 campuses. And I know that in some of those cases, they are still making an effort to reduce the amount of students that are there. But historically, we're doing very well. At one time, I remember a couple of years ago, we had something like 12 campuses that we were asking for waivers on.
Okay, yeah, I noticed that these 2 campuses are over by 1, 2, or 3, so that's
Yes, ma'am.
good. my next question is, what is the class size ratio for the middle schools and high schools?
Well, beyond that, you're looking at 25 to 1 for a regular classroom. That's what the recommended is by the state, 25 to 1.
25 to 1.
From fifth grade up.
Okay, Dr. Montoya, I have gotten some calls from some teachers that they have some classes anywhere from 30 to 35 students in the middle school. So I don't know.
I think, Ms. Longoria, what we could probably do tomorrow is if we can find out exactly which ones they are, we can investigate and try to bring the numbers down. Now, you always have to put it in perspective, because if it's a music class or a certain type of class, sometimes they tend to be bigger, or PE classes, those types of things. But if it's a regular academic type class, we want to keep the number down to be able
Right.
to.
No, I believe that they're regular classes like English and
Yes,
history.
if they're the
and math.
core
Yeah.
classes, we want to revisit that and ensure that we can get them down to the right number to help the teachers and the students. So.
Okay, that was all. Thank you.
Ms. Peña, was that your same question?
Yes, but my specific question is, I only have 2 schools listed here. There's only 2 schools listed here. And my question was, Dr. Montoya, do we have any teachers in the pool anywhere? Or has everybody already been placed? Because here's my question. We went around reducing or increasing the class sizes because some were too small, went around moving teachers, moving personnel, and then we have some schools that have classes with over that 22 to 1. I must tell you right now, I'm not in favor of that, because we are who we are. We've climbed to where we climbed because we did things the way that needed to be done in the area that we're living in. And for us to say, go ahead and waive it, that is scary as heck to me, because when you go over 20 to 1, you can end up with 26, 27. And I am having a problem with other schools telling us that they have more than the 22 to 1, or they're going that way because they wake up one morning and a teacher was moved to another school, which is your prerogative. But I'm wondering, how many teachers classes do we actually have in the district other than this
Dr. Montoya?
that are above the number now?
Hey, Dr. Atkinson, I think you have some specific information on that.
Thank you, Dr. Montoya, Dr. Escobedo, members of the board. And Mr. Vasquez reviews the numbers from K to 4. The 2 campuses that are being recommended, and it's definitely down from last year's recommendations that were requested by this board. We take it very seriously when we look at the K to 4 population of 22 to 1, where there has been balancing throughout the district, really throughout the last several months, actually. One of the things that I think is very important for everybody to keep in mind is that given the economic downturn of our budget and the close to $31 million that had to be absorbed by the district, we did not have the luxury to float teachers into places where they were not justified. We had a staffing ratio, a staffing formula that had been board approved. We went forward and started to allocate staff based on those formulas. Where we have 2 campuses that might be only 1 or 2 students over in those 3 sections, we have a standard that when we have over 10 students in a grade level, it'll trigger another teacher. Even though it'll bring them all down to about 17 to 1, that's the standard that has been set in personnel. But to go ahead and say that, we have done anything differently that would be adverse, I take exception with that one, only because we really are trying to do our due diligence in appropriating staff equitably and fairly throughout the district. No one's getting anything more than the other. If it gets triggered, they get it. No one has to beg, no one has to plead. They get that person. And where you see the movement of staff, if we have to move a staff member, we wait till they get triggered, so we don't have to move them unfairly or where it's not timely and it's not appropriate.
Thank you, Dr. Atkinson. Mr. Aguilar?
Just a few comments, Dr. Montoya. I think that only 2 schools, and it's only a total of 3. I think the district is doing an excellent job. I just want to caution that this is only, October?
Right.
And November, December comes along, and some of them might be coming in. So you got to be on top of it, so
That's my
other
fear.
schools will not go beyond the 22 to 1 ratio. This has got a concept, but I think the only 2 schools and only 3 students, I think that they're doing an excellent job. Now, the problem lies in the secondary, Dr. Montoya, because the balance of classes is sometimes difficult. And just for the information, the council might like to balance the classes, but sometimes there's no movement as to where to place them, and they have no choices at times. Now, that is the reality. And we might complain and everything it is, but doing that for the past, for 12 years, sometimes there's no movement where you can move them around, so some of our teachers get stuck with 30, 31 students. And it's not meant to overload that particular person, but then it's because sometimes there's no movement in there that can be done.
Thank you, Mr. Aguilar. Any other question comes from the board?
And just real quick, so then, in approving this, we're only going to approve for Garden Park, those 4 students total.
Yes.
Palm Grove, those 2, and that's it.
Yes, what's on the agenda?
Okay.
Just item number
Okay, because I
6.
was told there's more, and I only see
Well, this
2
is-
classes here,
yeah,
so.
this is only item 6.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Okay,
With that in mind, I have a
Sure.
motion to approve item 6.
no need for the face.
I have a motion by Dr. Saavedra, seconded by Mrs. Longoria. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item 10, recommend approval to modify paid holidays and vacations under Board Policy DED local to 7 paid holidays and 10 paid holidays to employees assigned to work 244 days and 5 paid holidays and 8 paid vacations to food service and transportation employees assigned to work 185, 187 days. I'll open the floor for discussion. Mrs. Peña.
A question was brought to my attention, Dr. Montoya, and I just wanted to ask this question here in this forum. That way, everyone can hear the answer, and I don't have to repeat it several times, and maybe not repeating it correctly.
What's your question, ma'am?
And employees that have asked, the money that was taken previously, we started taking or reducing the days. What day? Do you remember what pay period it was?
Dr. Montoya?
Mr. Garcia, if you can follow up with that, please.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
Oh, I didn't say.
He's
It
being
was
facetious.
during the August month.
Okay, and one question that was been brought to my attention and posed to me several times over and over, and I said I don't believe so, but I'm going to ask the question. They don't get back that money that was taken back then. This is moving forward, not going to come back and make it retroactive and give back what was taken.
Garcia?
That's why I want to ask you here.
Yes, ma'am. To answer that question quickly, it's the money was never taken away from them, and yes, it will be fully restored. One of the questions that has come up is, okay, we didn't get paid for a Labor Day, or we're going to get reinstated that day, and the answer is once you approve this agenda item, yes, they will be reinstated, and during the month of October, hopefully on the 14th, if not by the next pay period in October, everybody's going to be fully restored. Any money that was put in, banks for them is going to be, any hours are going to be paid.
Whatever was short in their paycheck per se, because I don't know how, it's this not a proper word to
But
use.
your answer was yes, right, Mr. Garcia? Okay.
So, okay, I'm not, yes, please, I'm sorry, and I'm sorry that you feel you have to say quickly, please, this is important, you don't have to do it quickly. My question is going to be that they already will know by the end of, let's say, November, everything will be back in place, and they will have everything restored, let's say, by the month of November. Would that be a fair assumption?
By the end of October.
Okay, I wanted to ask you that. I really appreciate it, and I'm sorry you feel rushed.
Any other question comes from the board? If not, I have a motion to approve item 10. I
Second.
have a motion by Dr. Saavedra, seconded by Mrs. Peña. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item 12. Recommend approval of resolution 020/11-12 for the sale of foreclosed property in the amount of $7,325.34. Open the floor for discussion. Mrs. Longoria.
Yes, Dr. Montoya, my only question, well, I have 2 questions. Were these properties vacant at the time they were foreclosed?
That's correct. And the other agencies, such as Cameron County, have already had their boards approve the sale. So they're just basically waiting for us to agree as a board. And that is the amount that we will get out of those that particular sale.
And do you know how long they had been delinquent in the taxes?
I'm not sure. Mr. Garcia, do you have any of that information?
I don't have that information with me, but I do have Mr. Enrique Peña, which is attorney for delinquent taxes and accounts, that might be able to answer that question.
Mr. Peña, how long were they delinquent?
They varied per property. On average, there were 10 years. On average, these are properties that were abandoned, vacant. There was only one. I think there was a mobile home, and it was abandoned. That was the only one. The rest are empty lots.
Okay. All right. That was,
Any other questions comes from the
that's
board?
all. Thank you.
Thank you.
If not, do I have a motion to go item 12?
Move to approve.
I have a motion by Dr. Saavedra, seconded by
Ms. Peña.
Mrs. Peña. All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item 13, recommend approval to amend page 36 of the compensation plan to reflect an equal per game rate for middle school volleyball game workers. I'll open the floor for discussion. Mrs. Peña.
No, move to approve. I got my answer.
Okay, I will now open the floor for discussion. Motion by Mrs. Peña, seconded by Dr. Saavedra. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item 14, request approval for the additional full-time equivalent FTEs for project coordinator for the TIPS program for the 2011-2012 school year. I'll open the floor for discussion. Mrs. Peña.
Yes, Dr. Montoya, I have a question. We have a project coordinator for TIPS program at this present time. We have someone in that slot at this moment.
We do, but Dr. Atkinson, I think you can explain the rest of what we have here, or Ms. Peña.
The question is, what was your question?
I haven't asked it yet, so here's the question. So then, the TIPS coordinator has already been approved by the board. Am I correct in saying that?
Dr.
Anyone?
Atkinson?
Thank you, Dr. Montoya, Dr. Escobedo. If you recall the board committee meeting where we talked about the flexibility of staff members for the TIPS grant, our people had been approved as deans, and in fact, all of them have already come to the board and have been approved. They have been assigned as deans at these campuses, which is our current positions that were available. Now we're asking for you to approve this slot on our compensation plan so that then we can have them converted to project coordinators.
Okay, and where are they now on this pay scale?
Sorry.
Dr. Montoya,
Mrs.
Dr.
Peña.
Enrique, Escobedo, and members of the board.
Mrs. Berta?
Sorry. I would like to answer that. Each one of the schools, the Cycle 1 schools, which are Lopez, Pace, and Hanna, and Cycle 2, which is our new schools that receive the TIPS grant, which is Falk, Porter, and Rivera, all require a grant manager. And so this coordinator is in charge of reviewing the grant with the campus, making sure that all reports are in. They evaluate the reports. They're pretty much responsible for all the financial reports that are due. We have a TIPS administrator. We've approved that through our board approval. And these are all placed at the campus, working with the campus initiatives firsthand.
So we already, but my question stands, we approved the TIPS coordinator before we had a position to pay them, so how are we paying them? That's pretty much what I'm getting confused at, so can you explain that, because I'm not understanding
Dr. Atkinson?
Yes, thank you. Dr. Escobedo, Dr. Montoya, I'll refer back to our board committee meeting where we discussed the TIPS grant, and we discussed how through the flexibility of our special programs, state comp, we would be funding additional positions so that we could get the people in place so that when the NOGOs came in, the district got reimbursed for their monies.
Okay.
Okay, so again, the people that are in place are additional deans at these campuses, which was the positions that were available at these campuses.
So they were, so we don't, do we have a project coordinator for the TIPS grant at the main office at this point?
Project coordinators are at the campus level.
Okay, but okay, so this is just for the ones that are going to be at the campus?
Yes, ma'am.
But they're deans right now, and now they're going to be converted into,
Yes, ma'am.
so we were
Yes,
paying them as deans, now we're going to,
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
the answer I was
Yes,
looking
ma'am.
for. Thank you.
Any other questions comes from the board? If not, do I have a motion to
Move to
approve item
approve.
14? I have a motion by Mrs. Peña, seconded by Dr. Saavedra. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Item 15, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding RFQs for legal services in BISD versus HealthSmart. It's a board member request, Mr. Colunga. We have that item in legal, but is there something you'd like to discuss now, or you want to wait till then?
If the board wishes to wait until the closed session to discuss it,
Okay.
that would be,
We'll
give us an opportunity to discuss it with council then.
Okay, well, we'll do that. We'll discuss it later in the agenda. There's no action. Item 16, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding the agent of record for our employee group medical insurance. Board member request. I submitted this item, even though this is not ordinary item that comes from the board, but I felt I should submit it because I sensed a little bit of ambivalence. I know that we're trying to save money, And I appreciate that. We're doing a good job under the circumstances. But my concern has been, as I stated in the past, are we trying to save a little bit? By saving a little bit of money, are we disregarding a large contract? And I know that there was discussion in the past where the agent of record, whether we needed one, wanted one, did not, and if so, what would be the negotiated fees? And I know that we said, if I remember correctly, if we did hire one, it would be at a lower rate than we have in the past. So that's why I brought it up, to kind of bring it up while we're all in the same room and pick everybody's brain. So with that said, Dr. Montoya?
Again, if you look at the history in the last several years, it has gone from a very large amount of money down to a lesser amount, to an even lesser amount. And one of the recommendations, as we've discussed, is what's the best way to operate our insurance operation. And we've discussed in-house administratively several ideas, of which the agent of record is one. But we also feel that maybe if we looked at what we call a risk manager type position in-house, that would be our employee, that we could work directly with them and also have some background in insurance. We felt that that might be more effective as we deal with insurance issues with our employees. But Mr. Garcia, I think you can share some other specific areas in that topic.
Mr. Garcia?
Dr. Escobedo, Dr. Montoya, as our superintendent mentioned, we have considered various options, and at this point, we feel that from a financial perspective, it would be probably better if we were able to create an insurance expert, a position, in the area of insurance that we could then have as our BISD employee that could do a lot of the functions that an agent of record could do, and in addition, help us in other areas such as, auditing other insurance issues that come along on a yearly basis. So, yes, therefore, although the money has been set aside, we do not have authorization to create such a position, but we would like to come back to the board and approach that avenue.
Okay. And that makes sense. My concern is that we're already enrolling, and we have neither at the time. I would, as I mentioned in my memo to you, Dr. Montoya, I would like to hear the recommendation of our insurance consultant, and I'd also like to hear from our employee risk management, if I may. Or employee benefit, I apologize.
I did actually contact our insurance consultant, which is McGriff. One of the first things that they said was, first of all, we do have to be up front, and for us to recommend something to the board would be, in essence, a conflict of interest from our perspective, because we also represent those types of services that you're trying to either determine whether you need or do not need. Then the other issue, they're saying it's a local issue, so it's really what the local administration, the local school board, what are the local needs, and those should be the determining factor whether we should proceed with such a position or not. So in essence, they kind of, gave themselves the out by saying that it was a conflict of interest, and then put it back on at the local level. One of the things that we have looked at is that area of expertise, and although we feel that we currently do not have all the expertise that we need, that's why we would like the board to consider in the future a position that could help us.
Now, if I may, Dr. Montoya, I'd like to just get the opinion of our employee benefits administrator.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, at this time, I would ask Montoya to.
Somehow, I don't think she's going to disagree with you, but I want her honest opinion.
Well, my honest opinion is, could the district save money by cutting the agent fees? I was in that conversation at the beginning of the year. Yes, we could save money from cutting that position. Could I use the help? I'm not going to deny that I could. There's areas that I'm still learning, and I need that expertise. So could I use an agent? Of course I could use an agent. But I will support administration in the decision that they've made, because they are looking at it from a different perspective.
How much is the group medical? Refresh my memory.
The group medical was approximately $45 million.
So how much are we planning or anticipating on spending on an agent of record if we so choose to hire one?
Mr. Garcia, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Just the number. What's the number?
The number is $1. The number is $1.75 per employee per month.
So is saving that money worth potentially neglecting $45 million?
It's not.
Because I'm convinced that we're not ready to handle it ourselves.
Right. I wouldn't use the word neglect because you also have to take into consideration that Blue Cross and Blue Shield, which is our third-party administrator, has provided guidance and is helping us implement the program. You know, they have given us somebody on site, and we're working together. And also keep in mind that McGriff, one of the purpose for that consultant is to also help us administer the overall self-funded insurance. So it's not that the program would be neglected or things of this sort. The question would be, how are we going to take that money that has already been allocated, because the money is in the contract, whether we're going to use it to hire an agent or whether we would want to get somebody, an in-house expert.
Okay, I'll just close with the analogy that I've given before here. In construction, you know, most contractors have an in-house project manager. However, I'm a believer in a sole project manager because they kind of they dedicate more time into it and oftentimes have more expertise. So I see the agent to insurance as a project manager to construction. But any other comments or questions from the board? So, Mrs. Longoria? Okay. So in essence, in closing, what is your status? You're going to do what?
I will, you know,
Go ahead, Mr.
with
Garcia.
the recommendation that the superintendent has put forth to give us an opportunity to come back and hire or open a position for and I'm calling it an in-house expert for lack of a better word, that we would be a BISD employee.
And Dr. Escobedo, members of the board, we would be looking for a person that has insurance background in that
I hope
business.
so.
It's
Yeah,
not
I hope so.
It's not a former, and I'm going to say it, not a former administrator from within the district, but an actual insurance person from outside the district, so that we have that expertise to help us.
Do we have in a perfect world, do we have a tentative timeline? You know, and again, because we're already enrolling and we don't have this expertise, that's my concern.
We can, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr.
Dr. Escobedo and Dr. Montoya, we can come back and have something in place within 90 days.
Okay, well, thank you. Any other comments or questions from the board? If not, moving on to item 17. There was no action on 16. Number 17, recommend approval to pay Texas School Alliance for annual membership fees in the approximate amount of $16,200 for the 2011-2012 school year. I'll open the floor for discussion. Mrs. Peña.
Dr. Montoya, and only because we're looking at every penny we're spending, what do we get for $16,000?
Dr. Montoya?
I think historically, from this group, it has represented school districts throughout Texas in the legislative activities in Austin. So we have gotten reports, very specific reports as to what legislative activities and what legislators are doing related to school activities. But also they have met with administrators from school districts as to what route to take on, and they're almost kind of a semi-lobbyist group also, you know, what route would help a school district. And so when they're in Austin, they push that type of, not only giving us information, but pushing certain legislation, working with legislators.
Okay, then I move to approve.
Okay, any other comments or questions from the board? If not now, I'll open the floor for a motion.
Move to approve.
I have a motion by Mrs. Peña, seconded by Dr. Saavedra. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Item 18, recommend approval to pay PUB $60,176.01, Palo Alto Support Service Center, to be paid from Local Maintenance Fund 199. I'll open the floor for discussion. Mrs. Longoria.
Yes, Dr. Montoya, my question again was these upgrades. Couldn't they been implemented or taken care of in the very beginning, or why are they coming back?
Dr. Montoya?
Mr. Haynes and Mr. Garza, if you'll please step up to the podium there. I think you have some specific information related to that area.
Mr. Haynes, would you answer Mrs. Longueria's question?
It's, Dr. Escobedo, Dr. Montoya, members of the board. Basically, we do have some...
Perhaps Mr. Garza can...
Yeah, let me call Mr. Garza. He'll probably...
If you're like me, I'm still wondering what the question was. But
I know.
What was it, Mrs. Longoria? Would you like to
let me
read
be
the
more
question?
specific. Yeah, because I'm reading here that the upgrades are for water and wastewater upgrades, but what kind of upgrades did they do, and could this have been done from the very beginning? Why now so late?
Mr. Garza, specific questions?
Dr. Escobedo, members of the board, Dr. Montoya. This is the normal operation with PUB. With every project, in this case, the water and sewer, which we're talking about now, starts from the beginning. This invoice is for the domestic water meters, irrigation water meters, and the big item is $49,000 in water rights. There at Palo Alto, we have 27.38 acres at $1,815. So the big item here of the $60,000 is the water rights. This quote is from back in December of 2010, and PUB, as soon as we give them a PO, they invoice. So if you look at the invoice is dated on February the 17th, but that's their normal operation. We don't pay until everything is done and everything we know is working fine. For example, the water meters, they're not installed until the contractor finishes all the water lines, all the sewer lines, PUB inspects, approve. That's the last thing they install. Once we get substantial completion and the buildings are operating for a few months, we know everything is okay, then we process the payment.
Longoria, any other questions?
So these are additional monies that we're having to pay?
No, Ms. Longoria.
No.
This is just the normal water rights, water meter installation, irrigation water meters and connections that we would pay. There's nothing additional.
Okay.
Okay,
thank
Any
you.
other,
invoice.
any other questions or comments from the board? Thank you, Mr. Garza. If not, do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
A motion, Mrs. Peña, seconded by Dr. Saavedra. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item 20, recommend, well, it's item 20. We could, well, let me read it
Oh,
anyway.
same question.
You're going too fast. Slow down.
Mrs. Longoria, what's your question on item 20?
It was the same question, so we,
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve item 20?
Move to approve.
I have a motion by Mrs. Peña, seconded by Dr. Saavedra. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
I know.
Moving on to item 24, recommend approval to enter into an MOU between Boys and Girls Club of Laguna Madre and Brownsville ISD from October 5, 2011 through October 31st, 2012. Mrs. Peña.
Yes, I noticed it's with the Laguna Madre. Is there a reason why we're with that particular one, or
Dr. Montoya, why
can
Laguna
you give
Madre?
me some details on it, Dr. Montoya?
This has been a group that had approached the district in the past. So this is something that's been ongoing every year, that they're willing to do these services to help our kids. So it's just them over time, over the last few years.
Are they based out of here, out of Brownsville?
They're in, I don't know exactly, they're Mr. Garcia.
They are.
Dr. Montoya,
Mr. Garcia.
Dr. Escobedo, and Ms. Peña, to answer your question is, Brownsville currently does not have a Boys and Girls Club.
Yes, I know that.
Therefore, this group, which is Laguna Madre, wrote a grant for all those schools in the 78520 zip code, and that's why they're.
And they want to include us as part of their grant, so, okay.
That's correct.
And I move to approve.
Okay, I have a motion by Mrs. Peña, seconded by Dr. Saavedra. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
That was nice of them.
Moving to a closed meeting as pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071 exec. Board goes to closed session. Moving on, if there's no objection to the board, do I have a motion to approve item 33 and 34?
Make a motion to approve 33
Second.
and 34.
I have a motion by Dr. Saavedra, seconded by Mrs. Peña. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Moving on to consultation with the attorney. 38A, no action. 38B, discussion and consideration regarding possible settlement in special education case docket number 290-SE-0811 before the TEA. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve or discuss in executive session?
I have a motion by Mrs. Peña, seconded by Dr. Saavedra. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. 38C, no action. 38D, discussion and consideration regarding settlement in the Eva Elm EEOC charge. I have a motion.
Move to approve as discussed in executive session.
I have a motion by Mrs. Peña, seconded by Dr. Saavedra. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. No real property. Moving on to announcements. Next scheduled board meeting is Tuesday, October 18th, 2011, here in the admin building at 5:30. Any other announcements, Dr. Montoya?
Escobedo, members of the board, a student, Jose Luis Barcenas from Porter High School, is featured on Channel 5 tomorrow. He's an outstanding student from Porter, number 4 in his class, and an outstanding football player. And so we just want you to
Wow.
recognize this young man. And that's
Way to go.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize, Dr. Montoya.
October is Cancer Awareness Month for the whole month, so there's a lot of activities schools and groups are doing in the confines of their campuses.
Great, great. Let's certainly keep that in mind and support cancer awareness. I had a motion to adjourn by Dr. Saavedra and seconded by Mrs. Peña. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. This meeting is adjourned.
Good night, Brownsville, 7:31 p.m.
Gentlemen, Ms. Administration, I would like to call this Policy Committee meeting to order. Today's Thursday, September 22nd, 12:30 p.m. And Dr. Montoya?
One of the important parts of a school district is to have current policies that all employees are very familiar with and that can be implemented and enforced. And there were some areas here very recently that we're trying to, in essence, update and share with the board some ideas to improve these areas. And one, obviously, is the criminal history checks, the vacation days and benefits, and then the last one is the employee grievances. But at this point, I'll go ahead and turn it over, first of all, to Dr. Atkinson, and then Mr. Arambula, who can share the specifics.
Thank you, Dr. Montoya, Mrs. Longoria, and members of the board. We have the 3 policies that we have discussed briefly, informally over the past few weeks. Really, most notably is our DED local, which is our vacation days benefits. And Mr. Martin here is going to go over some of the changes here. But just so that you know, one of the things that we've already had to address with some of the employees, the policy changes that were made in August by the board has already approved them. What happens before we can update the policy online, it goes to TASB. There's usually 4 to 6 weeks before they formalize it so that we can post it. So sometimes they'll say, well, this is not the policy that's online right now. Well, it isn't, because there's a process that takes place. So what we are going to probably start doing, though, is we're going to go ahead and PDF it, send it to all the campuses' locations so they have what's been changed, and that we're awaiting the update to the online policy. And so that'll hopefully help clear up some things. Specifically with DED local, the board did take action in July, prior to July, the end of June, when you adopted the budget. There were some changes since we were doing away with half of the days. Then we had another adjustment in July when you gave back a few days. So now that Mr. Garcia and Dr. Montoya are going to be bringing back to you all in October, where you reinstate those days, that'll necessitate another change. So this is in preparation for the next October meeting, where basically we revert back to the original, where there are going to be, it's a full restoration of the days. So we just wanted you to be aware of that. And then through DGB Local, we did have some discussion with our associations on 2 of the areas that they had some concerns with, and we definitely felt through quite a few discussions, it took 3 different meetings for us to go through it, that we felt very comfortable and we're in agreement of those 2 suggestions. And so I'll turn it over to Martin. He can get started. With your permission, Ms. Longoria.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Ramula?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair Longoria and Superintendent Montoya. The policies that we were asked to bring up before you were DED local under compensation and benefits, vacations, and holidays. The support staff vacation language was changed, and there's a new language that put in there for late hires on a pro rata basis according to the following schedule. And that goes down to the table that, if you can briefly look at that, the changes on Christmas holidays for working days, we had 2 days there, and the proposal is to change from 2 days to 1 days. And then below that, Labor Day was added. It's a total new row that was added in there to include Labor Day as well. and it's straight across the board, 1 day. As well, on Christmas, it's straight across the board from 2 to 1. Now, additionally, the biweekly 261 total day category includes employees in the, and this is new language that's added in there, the athletics, media center, maintenance, security, warehouse, facilities, transportation, and food service departments and district custodians are included now. Any questions on that? And this was, as Dr. Atkinson reflected, that it was the mandate that came about at the board meeting in the latter part of July.
Any questions? Okay.
Just real quick, on the working days for Christmas, 1 working day instead of 2. So, meaning that, that's what they get paid, just 1 instead of 2? Is that what I'm understanding, or can you elaborate on that? Anyone?
Thank you, Dr. Montoya, Ms. Longoria, members of the board. What happened, if you remember, when Mr. Garcia first explained this last meeting, as long as we could identify the 2 days that would have to be taken, then it would allow us to restore all the days. So if you look at Labor Day, wasn't 1 before, now it is. So they're still getting the 2 days, we just had to divide them up.
Thank you. That's it. That's what I understood. I want to make sure I understood.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Now, on the policy DGBA local, under employee complaints and grievances, on the third page, under the category of level 3, the new language has been inserted in there as requested, is where the grievant has the right to ask for an open or a closed hearing before the Board of Trustees. The superintendent of schools has final approval regarding such requests.
Okay. Did you want to say something, Dr. Saavedra, or?
No, go ahead.
You want me to address
Yes,
it?
go ahead.
Okay. I was just wondering if we could leave it as is, just change the word district to superintendent of schools, so that we could leave this, will be presented in open or closed meeting in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act and other applicable law. Instead of just, the superintendent of schools has final approval regarding such requests.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Yeah, if I may add, I think we were concerned to make sure that it was in accordance and not to assume, but that we do list that it is in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act and other applicable law.
Okay.
And Dr. Montoya, if I may? That's a good suggestion there, and we might want to regroup the sentences. I think that what happened is that when they said the district, they wanted to identify who it was. Was it the board attorney, the board president? Was it the superintendent? Who was going to make that call? That was the only reason that we left the superintendent in there. But maybe we can add that to the as a rider to that that paragraph right above where you read.
Yes.
And add that superintendent to there, unless you want to leave it, you want to identify whether it's the board attorney or the board president or the board as a whole. But what they're trying to do is to identify who's the one that's going to have that authority to say whether it's open or closed.
Right. No, it would be the superintendent of schools.
Yeah, I don't think we had a problem with the superintendent taking that
We want to
initiative.
put that
We
right
want to
after
make
CBE?
sure that we do list that it is in accordance.
Right.
So maybe instead of district, just change that to the superintendent. You see that passage
Oh, I
there?
got you. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, just change the word
Instead of
district.
putting all that other wording, just leave it and just change superintendent instead of district.
Okay.
And that way, everything else stays. And only because we want everybody to know that it is in accordance with the Open Meetings Act.
And
We're trying to identify, to let them know, it's not something we're doing. It's something that we're complying with what the law requires that we do. And
Right.
that way they don't feel like we're stripping them of their rights.
Rights.
Right?
And Dr. Montoya, the members of the board, the request for by the associations was to have it included in the policy that the grievant had a right to ask for it. Now, of course, the district, through the superintendent, would make that call, but apparently, and again, past history, unfortunately, has had them concerned, even though we have been very open with it. We've already had 2 open hearings to begin with. They would like to see that be considered for inclusion, that they do have a right to ask for it, but the district, again, will determine whether it's meeting with those
Well, and maybe
policies.
that statement can preclude that whole passage there.
Sure, that looks
I
good.
wouldn't have a problem with that.
That would look good.
Grammatically, it would be okay, and then
Sure.
it still fills the purpose.
And I think the key would be also for us to verify, as you said appropriately, Dr. Saavedra, that it does meet the state law, the requirement.
If I may, I guess you're putting this in here just to let people know it's in writing. I'm not making this up because we're only human and we might not know.
Well,
And this avoids needless little problems. Is that what that is? 'Cause
Well,
it's in black and white.
and I tell you, the comment that Tom Petreni, I believe is his last name.
Pantureri.
I might have
Pantureri.
I might have not pronounced it correctly. Mr. P is what I've been calling him. Anyway, his comment was, he said, well, okay, it's working well now, but in the future, if you all are not in place, then what happens then? Then we go back to fighting about whether or not we have a right to ask or not. So, that was the comment he had made.
I'm
So.
okay. I follow
Yeah.
your lead on this. And
Yeah, no, we're okay giving the grievant the right to ask for an open or closed meeting. That sentence is okay. But the superintendent of school has the final approval. I think you should remain with the original statement, just change district to superintendent of schools.
And we're going to put the grievant has the right, we're going to have that sentence before the superintendent shall determine.
Yes.
So we're
Right.
going to flip that, right?
Right.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, because it kind of
Yeah, that'll start the
leaves room for
passage.
doubt.
Okay, good. There's just one other section. On the introduction of evidence. Oh, that right here.
Okay. On the introduction of evidence, the new language proposed goes as following. All parties must introduce all evidence at level 1 of the grievance procedure. If a grievance is filed because of a written document received from the employee's supervisor, all evidence must be introduced at level 1 of the grievance procedure. All other grievances that are filed, the administration may introduce evidence at level 1 and/or level 2. All parties may introduce new evidence if the new evidence occurred after the previous hearing date. The new evidence must be received by the opposing party at least 5 business days prior to the upcoming hearing.
Any questions? Let's,
And if I understand correctly, the association kind of went through the language. You were saying you met and kind of, right? Okay, so they understood what we're saying with it.
yeah. Dr. Atkins?
Yeah, Mrs. Longoria, Ms. Pena, just so that you know, this language was being recommended by them in terms of, they said they had a few issues at a few of the campuses where at the level 1 hearing, after the level 1 hearing, when they got to level 2, then there was some document or some type of letter that surfaced that they felt was untimely, and had that been produced at level 1, they wouldn't have been at level 2. So I think for the most part, this is just going to, again, formalize this documentation has to be given at level 1. And if it's at level 2, then at least you have 5 days prior to the hearing, because no one wants to be embarrassed at the level 2 hearing. If they get an opportunity to say, you know what, I withdraw my grievance, because obviously you have information that would have supported that action, then they want that ability to do so. So it doesn't look like their grievance was denied based on, not being ill prepared or not having justified filed that grievance.
Yes, ma'am.
And we ran it by legal as well?
It was already forwarded to Mr. Michelle. I can tell you that he is, if I'm not mistaken, he hasn't yet to respond back to us, but it is not anything that's in conflict with existing policy.
Ms. Longoria. And I want to thank you, administration, for working with the teachers and coming to amicable decisions on this. This is important because this makes all the transition when you have problems a lot easier to deal with. So I thank you for that, for giving them that opportunity. Thank you, Dr. Montoya. because I'm hearing what you all are doing, and I really appreciate that, because it's a joint effort.
Dr. Montoya, Dr. Atkinson, Mr. Aramula, these changes have been reviewed by TASB as well? Or are they will be going to TASB?
Yes.
Yeah.
They will be going to TASB.
So we'll look at it based on policy from the state.
And just that, as an addition to that, when we send it up and it's board approved, TASB does, their legal folks review it, and if they have concerns, they will get back with us and tell us that, let's say, if it doesn't meet criteria or they don't feel that the language is adequate, they'll tell us why. But pretty much, they're really good about, once our legal folks review it, it works pretty well.
Okay, thank you.
Then,
Yes,
Dr.
ma'am.
Montoya, Mrs. Longoria, the last item is the DBA local. We gave you both policies, the local and the legal. This is on the criminal history checks, and I know that we've had some discussion on what the policy states currently on the need to process criminal history checks for employees. So we want to make sure, most districts really don't have a local policy. They stick to just the legal policy. But we do have a local policy in the district. And this is really, at this point, we're not recommending any changes here, but we are suggesting the possibility of allowing us to do an administrative regulation so that we can go back and ensure that those that are currently employed with us have gone through a fingerprinting or a national check, because there were several that, due to their lack of certification, did not go through that process. So we would like to identify them and then advise the board through a weekly update that these are the numbers of employees that would have to be processed, and we would like to go ahead and proceed with that. It's more of an administrative issue, but because it's not already included in policy, we wanted to just advise you that we would like to do an administrative regulation to address the issues of non-certified personnel that did not get the fingerprinting or not go through a national check.
Would it be possible to implement it into one of the policies, either or local policy?
Very possible. We have not. I know that Martin's already looked at asking TASB for a policy. There's been zero. It's normally they go with the state mandate first, which is all certified and newly hired people since 2009. So everyone else prior to 2009 are not being compelled to do it unless the district says we think it's a good idea, we should be doing it. So there's zero policy out there on it. So what we would like to, again, consider is having an administrative regulation.
Right.
And we can bring that to you all so you all know, but we don't suggest that it be a board policy at this point, because it would not be something that TASB would recommend as a policy.
Okay. Any questions?
Reasonable?
Sounds good.
Okay. Now we go to item 3, public input regarding items reviewed and discussed.
Good job.
No public audience? Okay, this meeting is adjourned.
Record time.
Thank you.
At 3:45 p.m., we go to item number 6, public input regarding items discussed. And there is no public audience, so I adjourn this meeting.
Good afternoon, Brownsville. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.